Well, hello, Dr. Chris Lemmon here, and this little chat is to go along with my May blog. I remember doing a little chat each month with the blogs. It started out with this concept of I do get people bouncing back questions to me, and so I'm spending a lot of time on the phone answering the same question. So I thought it's kind of nice to, after the blog is out, to do a little chat and attach it. I've now got to the point where I've sent some copies of my blogs out to people ahead to kind of review and bounce back to me, people I've known for a long time. And they come back and they say, what are you talking about, you old fool? You know, it's like, oh my goodness, you know. So I got to go in and I've been rephrasing it. So it's been beneficial, it's worked. And then actually then I got to the point now where I can kind of link this up with a blog, bounce it out, and maybe stimulate some different questions. At least I got the obvious, my thinking errors out of the way, right? Not thinking big enough. And so it unfolds in that particular sort of way so that we can get a little deeper with this. It's always going to be a little deeper. Change by its very nature is always somewhere you don't know. It's just going to be a little deeper. I start out kind of giving you the overview in January. I talked a little bit about, blah, 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 blah in February, March. We talked about the energy to supply it in the way that we preference things. We have this tendency to preference a certain view or a certain something. I've been doing things, I've been doing websites for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. And now all of a sudden technology is changing and all kinds of abstract pieces are coming up. And I was working this morning and trying to track some of this stuff down. It's not all that complicated once I get into it, or I get someone to give me some pointers and then I go through it a couple of times. It's like, oh, okay. It just becomes linguistic structure, right? It's just like, I've got a PC, my wife has an Apple. She has something she can't figure out. I can't begin to help her. I can do it on my computer, but it has a different label, different language structure. It's almost like it speaks a different language. My computer speaks a different language than her computer, without a doubt. I have people that work on both, and I just get hold of them. They say, "Oh, that's this. Oh, they call that this on an Apple." Blah blah blah. So it makes it manageable, but everything is searching for clues. So in my life, I've always taken on things that I don't know. I never was very comfortable with something that I got to know because I got bored too easy, right? The nature of impatience is a nemesis and a blessing. I'm always willing to move on to something new because, okay, I've had enough of this, right? Then the other end of that is it upsets your life constantly. Now, that may be good, it may be bad, but divorces, new friends, I just had lunch with a dear friend the other day, or it was breakfast, but it was 11 o'clock, but it was breakfast for him. I had a cup of coffee, but nonetheless, we had lunch and he's talking about friends he's had and people he went to school with, and he's got a roommate now in his place that he has that he went to school with. And I look at all this and I go, that's kind of interesting. I don't know the names of anybody I went to school with or who they were, or what they've been to, or where they're at, right? It's like, I have no idea. Do I keep up with people? When I closed my center down, I just deleted the whole database. I just dropped all the material. I just deleted everything. That's just what I do. I just like, okay, done, goodbye. Clicked everything off, right? And then people started finding me some way, shape, or form. I don't know how, but nonetheless, the email address didn't change. So I started getting emails. Of phone number didn't change, but I don't answer it, so they couldn't call me. So some were driven enough to be able to pursue and find it and start a communication. So I have some new people. I have some people out of my past that have kind of refreshed the communication. And so we chit chat. I have new clients that I call on a regular basis that I see and talk to every week. I have some people that I do for a while, but everybody has to find their own pace. It's kind of like you teach somebody something new, and then you got to step back and let them figure it out a little bit, right? Because the way they do it is going to be different than the way you do it. So you got to kind of back off Uh, you don't have, uh, I'm not the wise old wizard that's going to teach you all things. Uh, I just, because I bumped my head so many times and have so many scars up there, uh, I can tell you maybe good ideas is to duck, right? And and if you get that, it's great. And if you don't, like, I'll see you at the Mohs clinic, right? It's just, that's just the way life unfolds. I don't think anybody carries that wisdom. There was a time when it looked like people carried a lot of wisdom. They're more knowledgeable, maybe, in the way that they express things or the way they bounce ideas around. Uh, I'm just always fascinated when I find people take simple concepts and make them simpler in a world that's becoming more complex, because they're able to take all those little pieces that are forming in between, that are fragmented and they don't quite fit. It's, if you take a business card and cut it into 100 little pieces, you have one heck of a time putting it back together so it looks like a business card. I did that as an experiment one time in a class. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's like figuring out which one of a white piece of paper, which one with that edge and this edge goes on that one. It's like, it is a nightmare. It took the people that were patient enough to work with it. There were a few that put it back together, but I wouldn't have. I would have thrown it all away. It's like, that's crazy. It doesn't fit very well. You're looking for microscopic little clues. You cut it with the scissors, but the lines aren't all necessarily straight. They're a little chop chop. So you're getting little clues of which piece goes to which. A business card, think about it. All these little pieces. You're down there with the tweezers pushing them together on trying to match it all up. It's enough to drive you nuts. It is a form of meditation. Most certainly, you can see why paper folding and painting letters and symbols, or working with numbers and symbols, whether that's the Kabbalah or it's an Asian technique or whatever it is, you can start to see that's no different than having a lecture or a talk on ideas, right? It's just concepts and pieces. It's all it is little tiny pieces that we're piecing together in a different sort of way to come out with a different result. When the pieces get cut smaller, we have to pay more attention to get them together. And sometimes we wind up putting them together in a total different way, which is even more exciting. That's the dynamic we're working for. Change comes in two ways. It either comes as a choice that you consciously make. I got to do this. I can't handle this anymore. I got to do something different. Or it's a choice that is tossed upon you, like COVID-19. If you were working in a restaurant for the last 20 years, you're probably unemployed. Unless it was a big corporate place, and then you probably complained all the time because you weren't making very much money or whatever. You see, there's things didn't get better, things got worse for some people, right? And for some people, it got really better. And this is what we read about. As long as you're cautious how you print it, you read about that and you find out, wow, there's a certain group of people that have really profited from the crisis, and there's others that have really lost most everything. Homeless population is up, and it's kind of really sad to see out there. I don't have a solution for any of those things. So what we're really talking about is in the nature of change. If this, I'm using a fake background because I'm saying that I change and the background changes, right? So that's the nature of this. The background's there, it changes, and I change, and I may just settle down in the background. I had a whole bunch of them, and it's like now I'm at this point where I'm not all sure which one I use for which, but it's all right. It's just that they're separate. What I talk about in content, I could change the background and actually redo the talk, and it would not be effect. In other words, one has no effect on the other. But this in itself influences you. It influences you. I might say something might influence you. The background also influences you. Why do you think they make these, right? These make you to influence you, right? If the background was just my garage, with all my junk sitting in, a couple ladders and some paintbrushes, you'd say, oh my goodness, that would influence you in a different sort of way. Do you get this? This is less of a distraction maybe but most certainly a different bias. But we really play strong off of biases. Now, when I talk about, God, so many people, I tell them you got to look for clues and they don't know what a clue is. When you were a little kid and you saw somebody throw a ball, you say, oh, let me throw that. Oh, I want to throw that. Because you're excited. You want to learn something new. And then you throw it and don't go very far and they start to show you some things. I was a ski instructor for a while and I was kind of the old man in the group, right? All the rest of the guys were younger, right? So they'd always, all the younger guys wanted all the pretty girls, right? Of course, right? And they'd always go, let the old man have all those little kids, right? So I was fine with that. I like little kids, they're a lot of fun. So I had all these little kids. Well, I was a ski instructor because I wanted to ski. Now, get this, if you're a ski instructor, one of the privileges is that you have this ID, right? So then on your days off, when you're not instructing, you go to another resort or the same resort and you show your ID and you get to ski for free. So it's like, wow. So I ski 30, 40 times a winter when I lived close to the mountains. So I became an instructor. I would teach 2 days, maybe a day and a half a week, sometimes 2 days a week. And I get a pass. And then I just go ski. Every chance I got, I would go ski. And so to me, it was practical solution to how am I going to pay for $100 some every time you go skiing? Just volunteer your time, teach a bunch of kids, have a lot of fun. Now the little kids are great because I get there in the morning, I teach them a gliding wedge. Before lunch, they would get comfortable with the gliding wedge. They got it. They could turn, they could maneuver it. It's all body English for them. They don't try to manage or control it like an adult does. They just relax with it and they go, yeah, I just kind of like, oh yeah, I can just, oh, I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. In the afternoon, when they come back for their second class, nobody shows up. They're all up on the mountain skiing, right? So I have parents that come up skiing for a week, sign their kid up for classes for a week. I get paid to teach the kids for a week. Morning class, I got 40 kids. Afternoon, I have 0 kids. I go skiing, right? All the instructors are all over there teaching these girls that keep falling down and need to be helped up. And I'm up skiing, having a good time. Next day, I might get a couple of kids come back in the morning because, not because the gliding wedge didn't work. It's because their parents go, oh, you got to go back because you got to learn to do it better. By midday, they're looking at saying, I don't need to learn to do anything better. I got this. This works. Get out of my face, old man. I'm going up the mountain to go skiing. And they're gone again. Usually by the end of the week, I'll have a full class again in the morning because the parents are saying, oh my gosh, we're running out of time here on a week's vacation and you can only still snowplow. Oh, I got to get you back into classes. I paid for a week's for the classes. I want you to do at least a stem Christie turn or something along those lines. Their value structure was getting in the way. The kids are having a good time, right? Does a gliding wedge work everywhere? Well, not really. You know, if it gets a little icy, it's narrow channels, blah, 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 steeper hills. Although I've seen people, moguls 6 feet, and I've seen them skiing in between them with a gliding wedge, and I'm kind of like, I can't even believe they could do that. But anyway, it was really interesting watching them do that and watching that unfold. So those were all, it was a plan that I put together. My question was, how do I pay for my hobby? And to get more proactive, that would become the solution. Now, it was really creative getting into it because I didn't go apply for the job. I was up skiing with some friends, and one of my friends was a ski instructor and worked there. And there was a girl that I had brought up with me that wanted to learn to ski, and I was kind of flirting with her. And I was up skiing with her, and she was one of those whiners. Oh, I don't know. I'm so tired. Oh, I've got to sit down. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So he was Mr. Oh, let me help you. And I thought, well, this is wonderful. I'm going to write this one off. He can have it, right? It's like, it's not going to go anywhere with me. So he went over there and was helping her get up and showing time. And he was really patient with her. He's a really sweet guy. And next thing I know, they're in love and they got married. Well, he gets married and now he doesn't want to, he's got a real job and he's a ski instructor on his days off. So all of a sudden he doesn't want to leave his new wife on his days off because he wants to go spend time with her, go to the beach, go on trips, go whatever, right? So he said, will you cover for me, Chris? I said, sure, I'll cover for you. So for 2 years, I covered for him. After about a month, the owner of the place come walking over and say, I see your name tag and I see you're wearing the uniform, but you're not Chinese. So I'm sorry, that's probably not your name tag. I don't know who the heck you are, but I've been watching you for this month and you're doing a great job with these kids. And you seem to get along great with the kids and they really like you. So let's just get you your own name tag. And I don't know how you get paid or whether you're just doing this for fun or what. I don't even want to know. Let's just get you through the bookkeeping because I got to cover you insurance wise in case you get hurt out here. So anyway, that's how I got the job. I just kind of backdoored my way into it, right? And I did it for a lot of time one year, and then the next year I didn't have as much free time. So, but I still did it at least day and a half or 2 days a week. So it was really fun. It was a really good experience. I learned an awful lot of how to be a better skier. I probably, didn't become, a grand skier because after a couple of years I moved away from being an hour's drive to the ski resorts. And at that point it was 2-3 hours drive. And it's like a way too, I like to hit the slopes with the first chair going up, right? And when you're an instructor, you can go there and you can get on the first chair going up and they fire it up and you're in that first chair and you can get a couple of runs in before the mass media gets there. And that was always really kind of fun. After I lost that privilege, if I had a 3-hour drive and you got to be there at 8 in the morning, 7:65, you got to leave your house at 5, you got to get up before, load a car, get everything ready. Boy, that makes for a really long day. And by the time you got 3 hours going home again, so you get out at 4 o'clock, you leave 5, 6, you get home 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So that means you stop and eat on the way, and you got to go to work the next day. So you see, it got complicated. You see how life gets complicated, and I had to make changes. I had to move on to a different sport. I had to move on to a different activity. So another clue came up. Something else occurred in life, and I was into something different. That's always the nature of it. When we do something for a while and it has a lot of our attention and it goes away all of a sudden, we think, oh my goodness, because we didn't plan on it going away. When it disappears, we go, I don't know what to do. No, you go back to what you always did. You look around for what gets your attention. It always starts in the logical system. It always starts with, I shouldn't say always, but pretty much always starts with attention. Something catches your attention. Sometimes it comes from asking questions, but for the most part, usually the questions come from what gets your attention, but not always. Sometimes they just land in your lap. So questions and attention come into play, and then you have to start to make decisions. But as it flows in, you decide to try something. I have tried a lot of things. And some of them have worked out really, really good. Some of them just were a flop, just totally flop, right? I made zip code directory books when zip codes originally came out, and I had a garage full of them for eons. I never could sell those stupid things. I actually wind up paying for someone to haul them to a recycler. So not everything works out really good, but it's just simply trying, right? It's just like you talk to anybody that's had success and they can always tell you about their failures. That's the nature of change. It's always going to be there. Sometimes it just works out so quickly and you catch the clues so fast, it's unbelievable. And other times you're sitting there in your own way, missing it all. So that's why I spend so much time talking about clues. I promise this is kind of made. I'll probably mention it again before the year is out, but I will get on to something else come come June. So this is like, think a little bit, look around a little bit. If you're out of work and you're looking around, it's kind of like, wow. One of the things I see homeless people do over here, just show the creative process, not successful, but a creative element. They go down, they buy a cheap car from a used car lot, $1,000, $800, whatever. So they got a stimulus check, or they got a last paycheck or an unemployment check, and they buy the car. And then they strip the car down on the street. They take and park it. They don't have plates on it because they don't register it. They buy it and they fill the paperwork out, but they never send a check in because they don't have it. They pull the wheels off and they put it down on the ground on the street, and they sleep in the car. And then every day they get up and they tear a door off. They tear the back seat out. They open the engine compartment. They take parts off the engine, and they go on their phone. And there's some links on there they can put out, I got this part, anybody want it? And they literally right there on the street sell parts. I've seen streets, I've got a picture on my website in Portland of streets with 8, 9 cars just sitting there on the ground. Wheels gone, brakes gone, most of the engine parts stripped off, the seats, the doors, the window frames, the windshield wipers, everything they can sell off it. When they've sold everything they can, they move out of the car, take their money, go down and buy another one, and then do the same thing and just park it on the street next to it. That's innovative. I got to say that. And I'm sure now they're probably, since Portland is, at least in the Portland area, they've come down on them and they're hauled those cars off the street because they're illegally parked. Obviously, they have no plates on them and no wheels, so they're illegally parked. So they hauled them away finally, but it was after a year and a half till they got around to hauling them away. And now they could be on somebody's private property in the field, in the national forest somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised. You can go to, we can, half-hour drive from here, we can be in the national forest. We could go up to the national park, pull down a dirt road somewhere, park that thing, live in it for a week or two and strip it all down. It's just that you're probably going to have a second vehicle to come into town to sell the parts. I'm not sure that anybody's going to drive that far out there. You see how ideas unfold. I'm not saying it was a good idea, but I'm saying it most certainly was an idea that worked for some people for a while. You start to look at clues, you try things out a little bit, and you move on to something else, and you move on to something else, and you move on to something else. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing in 2022, right? I'm still trying to work my way through 2021, but I'm starting the conversation this May for what I'm going to do in 2022, because I have to start letting clues flow in to start to get ideas. I used to have a lot of ideas going with friends to a coffee shop, and we'd sit there and chit chat for hours, about the crazy world that we live in. And then finally, I'd have notes afterwards, make clues, call them up, email them, chit chat about it a little farther, start to move in a direction. They'd start to move in a direction. Some of them went nowhere. Some of them developed into something. It's just the nature of the game. You might get 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20, 1 out of 100. That works, right? But that's what you do. You keep pursuing little tantalizing things that catch your attention, things you chew on for a while. I've got lists. I've got notes over here. I've got lists of things on the back burner. I've got notes for workshops that I probably will never do. It's like, that's all fine and good. I've got a talk that I've already prepared, and someone said, I want you to come do a talk, but as soon as the COVID thing backs off, which I'm not all sure that's ever going to happen, but nonetheless, I still prepared to talk. So I'm ready to go. I got 4 or 5 hours up here of material to talk about a topic to a group of people who want to be able to get me down and have me there to talk to them, bounce some ideas around. But we really have to make clearance to have that level of meeting, right? Kind of interesting world that we're in, right? Do you follow all this? Okay, so change is change. If that background changes, it still can influence a change. So first thing that we started out with this year is notice what influences you, right? So normal change in your life influence you. If you've always done things a certain way and you can't do it that way anymore, then that changed. I used to eat rabbit, And now anymore, just like I knew people that would hunt. I knew people used to give me rabbits because they would go get a lot of them. And now anymore, there's a problem eating wild rabbits with some kind of disease that's in it, you know? So it's like, wow. All right. So that's good for, I guess, for the rabbits, although the disease kills them, it's not good for them in the long run. But anyway, you could get domestic rabbit. But because all of a sudden, all the people that were hunting rabbits and supplying it to their friends and neighbors as you go out and shoot 40 of them, why weren't doing that anymore. So then the demand in the meat market for domesticated raised rabbits went through the roof. So when I used to get a rabbit for $4.99 a pound, now it's $12.99 a pound. You know, I just lost my taste for rabbit. Is that, you see how the market changes? That's a change that has altered and made a change. I have not bought rabbit probably in 8-9 years. So I used to have it every year, but I used to love putting them in a basket, put them in a barbecue, marinate them in a red wine sauce, make a reduction sauce. I have a lot of recipes for rabbit somewhere in my computer. I don't know where, but I have not used them in a long time. Like a lot of other things, it's passe, right? How important was it? I don't know. What's the most important thing in the world? What's going on right now, right? Is that important? If I haven't done it in 10 years, is important? Obviously, it's not important, right? It might be nostalgic, but it's certainly not important. Do you get this? Change is normal. When you get into change, you'll sit there and you go, I can't remember I used to do that. I can't remember that for 20 years I got up, I was out the front door by 4:35 in the morning for 6 days a week for 20 years. And then when I got done working around 5 or 6, I went and taught classes, and I got home around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and I was out the front door at 5. And so you sit there and you think, wow, 20 years, 4 or 5 hours sleep, like, wow. Does it take a toll on your body? Yeah, all the above. Should you keep doing that until you die? Well, some people think so. I retired and said, no, you know, I'm going to do something different for a while because that's too hard on my body, right? Do you get this? I think you have to look at either you implement change or the world implements change for you, right? Or situations implement change. You're always going to be looking for clues. What am I going to do next? What's going to inspire me? Where am I going to go with this, right? That's exactly what you're facing with. Now, that background changes, produces the influence. You're going to have to deal with that. COVID's pretty much in the background for me. I don't have COVID, so it's in the background for me. But most certainly, it's altered the background of the world that we live in, right? And that influence is going to be there for quite a while. Could you imagine little children being brought up in this world today? I can remember having a conversation with a guy out of India who was dark skinned. So he had left India. His parents had left India because of racial prejudice. In India at the time, they were the untouchables, right? So they were impoverished. In other words, they had a dirt floor. They had no transportation. They had no shoes. They had one food that they would eat a couple times a day, something they could grow somewhere in a field that didn't even belong to them, but it was just a field, and they planted it out there and cultivated and grew their food. They took water out of a river, which is far from safe, but that's what India does. And he wound up in America. And when I talked to him, he was looking at job opportunities. He was managing a 7-Eleven store. And he was like 24 years old. And I just had such a blast talking to him because he was so excited about everything as an opportunity. He's like a kid in a toy store. It's like, wow, all this opportunity that he saw in America. And here he was working to sample it all, to experience it all, and had really good questions and in-depth things. And I don't think he was afraid of trying anything. It was really inspirational. He had such a sweet personality. And the fact that he was managing his store with a lot of pressure on him, and everybody in the store just loved him. I mean, they just had such a wonderful relationship. It was just such a relaxing thing to walk in there and recognize all that. I actually didn't work him. I actually told him I didn't think what I was doing was suited for him because of the fact that his skill sets really were in a management level with people. He was profound. To be someone who's came from poverty and was persecuted racially in a country and come to America, which has its own share of persecution racially, and all of a sudden wind up in San Francisco managing a store and being part of an establishment and have to go to school at nights to learn to read English and really interested. I gave him about 5 or 6 old books I had. He was always trying to collect books so that he could read. He said he got around 4 or 5 hours sleep because he'd spent minimum of 2 to 3 hours a day reading. And he wrote in all his books because he said that's how he learned new words. He encircled a word, wrote it down on a tablet, looked it up, and then tried to use it in his language. So he was developing a skill set. Here's a guy that's never educated. And yet we sat there and had a delightful conversation. He was very knowledgeable about ideas and concepts. All that came from interface that he had with people, with books, with material, with resources available. That's what we're advocating. That's what we're trying to do. Don't step back and say, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's very frustrating, right? Right now, graduates out of college, pretty much is 2 years till they can get a job. That's a statistic. It's really kind of scary for the average. Some get a job immediately. Some don't get a job for 5 years. It's really very sad. I have people that have graduated from college and they've been living on their mother's couch for the last 3 years, and they've come to me for counseling because now they have suicidal ideas, and we just have conversations about how they can be of value to the community. Volunteer, go do something. This one had a community garden where she lived. And I said, go talk to everybody and say, I have a lot of free time. You guys don't necessarily do that. If you have anything for me to do, I will do it as a volunteer and help you. So she got so busy watering plants and stuff for people who were going on vacation, taking care of the garden, moving dirt around, helping older people move some of the stuff that was too heavy for them. She was so excited about her project, and she was actually going to write it up as kind of a thesis for one of her classes that she was taking online, trying to do continued education. See how this unfolds with clues. I don't know if money will come out of it, but it got her out of entertaining suicide and all of a sudden finding value that she brought to the table through her life and her experience. That's what we're trying to get you started on. And that's the direction we start to look. This is an opportunity for change. It's not pleasant. Change is never pleasant, promise, but it's an opportunity for change. So start to look at those clues, look around a little bit, play with that a little bit. Have any questions, go ahead and email me, Chris, that's with 2 S's, at wizardscatch.com, right? Chris at wizardscatch.com, WIZARDSCACHE.com. Bounce your questions off. I've got another forum that I use to answer questions. I've got some really good questions. I'm actually a little bit behind on talks. I will probably do them pretty soon. I just had a week of sunshine and I had a lot of yard work to get done. So now we're back into a little bit of rain and I got a little more time to work. So that's enough chit chat, I think, for today. Take a look at the blogs. I think next month we're about halfway into the year. The first half of any project that I'm working with people in counseling or anything else I do with them, usually is always about finding clues, noticing clues. They always want to look for something that matched exactly who they were. They're looking for a clue for who they were and never for a clue who they're going to be. It's very, very tough. It's just the nature is, oh, I can do that. I know that. Oh, I'm good at that. It's like, No, 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 no. You need to find something totally new. It it just can't hear that. Yeah. That's just the way it is. All right. So have a wonderful time. It's been really, really, really fun chit-chatting. And so from my library to your library. Thanks. Bye.